morning. Good morning. How is everybody doing? Welcome to the Diamond Factor Experience Show with Barbara Beckley and experts and friends. As I always say, I love because it takes a team, it takes collaboration to make this show be so amazing and awesome. So I hope everybody's doing wonderful. We're starting off our week. And I want to say happy MLK Day, Martin Luther King's Day. And, I was thinking just yesterday, and I was telling myself, okay, I'm coming on a wonderful, amazing day of a man that made some big, huge, huge accomplishment, made a movement in the world to the point now we are celebrating that. Today is his birthday. And I wanted to we're always talking about, because everything that's going on in the world right now, as we all know, I'm not going to put the elephant in the room. I mean, there's been a lot of injustice going on. It's been heightened, the racism and everything like that. But I said, what is one thing that can really put in all of our minds, and all minorities, all races, what can we put in our minds right now to lift that up and think about what we need to do to make that, to break it. I always say break it because it needs to be broken. It really does. This has been going on far too long, and we all know that this is like craziness, okay? But there was the one thing I thought about, and that's love. So I got the quote. It says, "Love is the absent of judgment. Love is the absent of judgment." If we just put that heart that we have right here and have a multitude of love for others, there'll be no judgment going on. There'll be no back and forth. Think about it. Just think about it. Love, I mean, just go into the Bible. They said love covers a multitude of anything else that can happen in a negative light. So I just want people just to really just sit in that today. Think about what this man represented, what he went through. He had a whole lot of love because he went through the different levels to make sure that everybody can at least see themselves as being equal, to see themselves and say, look, just give me the respect that I deserve. That's all I ask for. That's all I ask for. So think about the love, a little heart. And we are going to move on, but I do have a little special little video because it is MLK Day, just to reverence and, like I said, to make sure you have that thought process. So let me put that on, and then we will come to our expert, Mr. Iqbal, because I know he has some good stuff every Monday. So I just had to put that together just to show, first of all, some known facts that I didn't even know that until I looked them up. That 15 years old. I was like, wow, in college. So yeah, see, that's really good. Research is the key. I'm telling you, you can never get no more of researching individuals and really understanding who they are when you really just dig deep. And guess what? You got Google University. There's really no excuse anymore. Before, I mean, back in the days, in the dinosaur days of my days, as people call me, we had to go get an encyclopedia. Does anybody know what that is? It was really a book that we had to read and open up. I mean, it was paper copies of everything, and we had to really research a little bit differently. Now you can just click on, an icon and on and say, okay, here's everything there. No, we had to go in a book. But I'm glad those were the days because I really appreciate even more so of what I had to, well, maybe some people say endure back in the day, but deal with so I can learn. And it pushed me and it propelled me to say, you know what, I want to do better. So let's all do that. And the biggest thing I want to remind everybody again is what I said earlier about love. Let love cover everything else because that covers a whole lot. And with that, we're going to bring on our expert. I know you some good stuff. And here comes Mr. Iqbal.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, and of course, happy Martin Luther King Day. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, and I really want to talk about why today is such a magnificent, magical, and momentous day. We're talking about recognizing and celebrating the life of a leader who spoke, acted, and thought with integrity. And this is a man who not only just championed justice and not only inspired millions, both in this country and around the world, how to stand up for what was right, but he did things and walked in a manner and literally felt the need to be able to do what he said was important. And that is what we're going to be talking about today, the concept of integrity. Because integrity, when we think about it, it's the bedrock of trust. And for leaders, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Growing up, we heard grown-ups and adults talk about integrity in a lot of different ways. I'm sure you've heard these sayings before. You got to walk the talk. You got to put your money where your mouth is, and you better practice what you preach. Right? Those were things that when we heard them, we understood that there was a necessity for people to be able to act with integrity, whether they did it in front of others or they did it privately. It was important for the synchrony for you to be able to do what you said you were going to do and do what you tell other people to do as well. And you'd think that the millennia that has passed behind us, with the billions of people that have lived through challenges and faced situations as leaders, whether you had a team, whether you had an empire, or whether it was just you as the leader of a family unit, you would believe that integrity is a simple concept that everyone has understood through one or two series of incidents as a child, and that people say, hey, this is how it works. And I'm sure, like you, your mom either washed your mouth out with soap or tanned your hide. And for some of you, maybe you just got a timeout, and that was because you did not act with integrity. And again, you would just think that this is a concept that comes naturally, that we shouldn't need 20,000 books on Amazon to be able to teach you what integrity is. The fact of the matter is, time and time again, we are either dismayed, disappointed, and sometimes devastated when we realize that people, both within our inner circle and those that we look up to at the top, have acted in a way that violates the terms of integrity. And that is why I want to spend today on Martin Luther King Day talking about this concept of integrity. In fact, we're going to dive in and explore this one facet of leadership today. So we're going to talk about what is integrity. We're going to talk about how do we know if we have it. We're going to talk about who does and who doesn't have it. And then, of course, most importantly, how can we get better? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When we talk about leadership, it doesn't necessarily mean an official position as a director, a manager in a corporate setting. It can be the head of your household. It can be a community leader. It can be even a political leader. Leadership and even just acting with integrity for yourself is going to be critical. So we're going to talk about these four areas. What is integrity? How do we know we have it? who does and who doesn't have it. That's going to be the best part. And of course, how can we get better at it? And for those of you that are just joining in, good morning. My name is Iqbal Acha. I'm a career consultant, a leadership development coach, and a personal branding expert. For the last 20 years, I've been helping Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and nonprofits attract new audiences, hire talented people, and develop a new generation of leaders. Today, I help students, professionals, and executives advance their career, build a better brand, and create a leadership legacy. So let's talk about integrity. What is integrity? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, integrity is defined as two different categories. Number one, it's the quality of being honest. The quality of being honest. Now, you again would think that honesty is a natural, instinctual thing, that as human beings, we've evolved past this selfish, this selfish concept of doing things and saying things that are false in order to gain greater benefit. And of course, the older we get, we do learn through some of these experiences why integrity makes a huge difference. But the integrity aspect of the being honest is something that is super, super critical. Another angle of looking at what integrity is having strong moral principles. Having strong moral principles. Again, for those of you that have faith, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, maybe there's a tenet of principles that you ascribe to, and that helps you find centering and grounding of your instinctual beliefs. That helps you with your integrity. And for those of you that don't, that's still okay. You have moral principles that you have recognized that this is okay and that this is not. And integrity is critical in how you come across to other people, how you engage and interact with others, and more importantly, the kind of reputation that you develop for yourself through those interactions is what predicts and also creates opportunity for you in order to be a trusted brand. Now, when I think of integrity, I have to go back and I have to be able to give you personal stories in order to show that the person that you're listening to today or watching this video today, can you trust me? Do I have integrity? How do you know? For some of you, you've met me, you've talked to me, you've understood that when I said something, I acted with you. And for those of you that have never met me before, you may be questioning that. I think back to the time when I was a father and I had two kids, a daughter and a son. And some of the things that they would request of me were things that I recognized as a father were very important for me to set the precedence. So for example, when my son was young, he was very, very interested in Taekwondo. It's a form of martial arts for those of you that are unfamiliar with this. And it was important for me to help him develop his both self-esteem, to help him nurture his passion. And just because I paid for those classes, that was not integrity. That is just doing what's necessary for your child's development. What is integrity is telling your son, hey, every time that you have a test to go from a yellow belt to an orange, a yellow belt to a green belt to a blue belt, whatever the color test belt is, I will be there. Now, I was an entrepreneur at the time. I had 7 different businesses. I was running 7 different companies and working 84 to 100 hours a week. But no matter what happened, when it was time for him to have his test, I blocked off my calendar. I drove from my office to that dojang, which was about an hour away, made it there on time so he could see me and I could watch him. It was a promise that I made, and I acted on that with integrity every single time. On my daughter's side, she was very, very, she's an extrovert. She likes to talk a lot, probably gets that from her dad. And one of the things that she would always do is when there was time for show and tell, she would ask me, Dad, I would like for you to be my show and tell character. So I promised her I was going to be there. Now, this was on a day where I had multiple meetings. And again, driving an hour away back into from the city back into the suburbs to be able to honor my promise to be there for her meant that I would be able to set a precedence of integrity. It's a story that she relives over and over again when she communicates with her family, with her friends, that this was my dad, that he showed up when I was in kindergarten and came and spent an hour doing a show and tell presentation with me. Even today, when I think about a little bit of integrity, and this is something that you guys can probably attribute yourselves to, either as parents or as children, as community leaders, there are promises that we make to our loved ones that might seem insignificant to you, but they mean a lot to other people. So for example, my father is 83 years old. And many years ago, I made a commitment that no matter what, as long as I was in town and I wasn't traveling out of town for business, every Friday I would take him to the mosque. I would sit with him, we would pray together, and I would drive him home. It's a commitment I've made 7 years ago, and I continue to honor that because of integrity. Now, you will be able to look at different stories in your personal life and recognize that, hey, there are some principles that I firmly believe in. I'm willing to contribute my money to, I'm willing to sacrifice my time for. And when I make a commitment to that, it's an act of integrity to make others aware how important this subject matter is. And so think about, areas where you look at yourself and says, do I have integrity, or what principles do I stand for? I know a good friend of mine is an avid pet lover, and no matter what, every opportunity that there is, he will sacrifice multiple, like 20 hours a week to volunteer at ASPCA, the American Society of Prevention for Cruelty for Animals. It's his passion. It's something that he truly believes in. Now, he could go out and do fundraising for ASPCA. That's great. But not only does he do that, he gives his time. That's where you will see integrity in action. Now, let's move on to the next part. Like, how do we know that we have it? So we can identify slices of our life where we can say, yes, I have integrity when it comes to my religion. I have integrity when it comes to my children. I have integrity when it comes to work. But do we have integrity in every facet of our life? Is it easy to do? No. Sometimes it's a challenge, but it's also a good gut check for us to recognize at what point do we cross that line? Or are we even acting in integrity in these different areas of life? So honestly, for everyone that's watching today, the best way for us to know if we have integrity is to question our integrity. Think about it. If you just think that automatically you have integrity in one area and that it automatically bleeds over into another area, you're wrong. Because there's an opportunity for us to necessarily go back and check one by one in what areas, religious or spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, financial, work, professional. There are different categories that constitute our character. And it's important for us to recognize if our character acts with integrity in each one of these categories. So let's talk about some questions that you can ask yourself and that you can teach others to be able to do a gut check to say, do we have integrity? So here's the first question that I always ask myself whenever I think about integrity. Do I make things all about me? Now, I'm going to repeat that question. Do I make things all about me? When you are the representative of an organization, a community, a group, a company, we know, or I know for myself, that I have a responsibility to promote the values, the principles, the mission of that organization. If it's for my family, I want to make sure that what we do together is for the benefit of all of us. If I'm working for an organization, it's because we are all striving to achieve the mission and the vision of the company. But when I change that, am I saying things that are only impacting and benefiting me? Am I being selfish in my words and in my actions to the point where it hurts the organization, that it hurts my family, or that it hurts friends? Has anyone ever come back at a presentation or after a meeting or even in a one-on-one conversation and ever told you, hey, what you just said, it didn't feel right. I don't feel good about what you said. That is a question that you should ask yourself, because if that has happened, that is an opportunity to recognize that either something you said did not coincide or converge with something that you did. So always ask that first question. Do you make things all about yourself? Question number 2, does your self-esteem rise or fall based on the opinions of others? Does your self-esteem rise or fall based on the opinions of others? See, a secure leader will act in the right way in order to lead his or her people through tough conditions. But an insecure leader will bend with every change in public opinion. Think about it. As a leader, you've been elected, appointed, or have found yourself in a leadership position because of the way that you have acted, the way that you think, and the necessity for you to guide your people towards something better. Now, your people may or may not have all of the information. They may or may not have a full picture of what's happening. But as the leader, you are responsible for doing what is best for them based on ideas, conversations, and your own intellect. If all of your people disagree with you and you know that the right direction is to go right and they're saying go left, if you change your direction, that's not acting with integrity. It is flowing and moving and blowing with the wind. So, does your self esteem rise or fall based on the opinions of others? As a strong leader, it's necessary for you to recognize that you're going to hurt some people's feelings, but not intentionally. It's because you are doing what is best for the majority or the entirety of your organization or of your group. Third question you should ask yourself when it comes to, do you have integrity? Are you hiding things? Now, let me repeat that. Are you hiding things? That's not to say you should tell everybody everything. That's unhealthy. Telling everybody everything that you do in every aspect of your life invites harm. But it is important for you to recognize that you do need to tell one person everything. Now, for me, that's my best friend. That's my rock. That's my solid life partner. That's my wife, Amy. She knows everything about me. She knows my ups, my downs, my thoughts, my actions. She knows when I act with integrity, and she damn well checks that. And then on top of that, she'll make sure that I do act with integrity when I'm waffling or if I'm unsure or if there's something going on. She is the one person that knows everything. Now, when it comes to talking to your group or talking to your family, your community, your corporation, your department, it's important to be able to be transparent and be able to give them information that backs up the reason why you've made the decision, right? I see too many times where leaders, official, unofficial, appointed, elected, or self-appointed, will say, this is what we're going to do because I said so. That's not integrity. You have to be able to let people know, like, hey, this is just what happened. And because of that, and this is what's coming, we're going to be doing this. Hiding things is a very, very slippery slope, and it's a bad decision. So if you feel that you're hiding things, especially when people tell you, like, I don't feel like I'm getting the whole truth, sit down with them. Tell them, this is what I have seen. This is what I have heard. These are the things that are happening that will impact us negatively or positively. This is how we're going to prepare for that. Fourth question that you should ask, there's 5 in total. Do you fail to do what you said that you're going to do? Do you fail to do what you said you're going to do? And this is not about just keeping promises, right? It's about keeping your word in everything that you do. Earlier this morning, I gave you a story about my integrity with my children, right? They are now 29 and 27, but those stories still resonate for them because even though I may not have been there for every single ball game or every weekend or every night that I could be home until 8 p.m., those are things that I had made a verbal commitment to, and I acted with integrity because I made them a promise. And I think that this is where most leaders trip up. The thing is, it's better to say nothing and surprise someone by delivering them something amazing than blurt something out and then be unable to fulfill it. So it's sometimes instinctual in a conversation for us to say, yeah, oh yeah, I can do that for sure. But the fact of the matter is you haven't checked your schedule. You don't know the time commitment of this promise that you're about to make. Rather than say yes, you can table it. You can say something like, that's a really fantastic idea. Let me check with my administrative assistant. Let me check with my calendar. Let me check with other commitments. And I'll get back to you in 48 hours to let you know if it's something I can or cannot do. Very easy. Because the minute you make a promise and you fail to deliver, people lose confidence in you, and you will always, always, always have a reputation of someone who is unreliable. The last question you should ask yourself when you question, do I have integrity? Do not, or ask yourself, do I make compromises and how many? Do I make compromises and how many? Now, understand, there are times when working with an individual or a small group, small concessions can be made in order to build a spirit of cooperation, to be able to recognize that this is a very minor sacrifice on my part, but overall, we will work together in order to be able to achieve greater things. But if you find that you are compromising regularly, more frequently, It's because you're trying to be liked. And leadership is not about being well liked. It's not about having more people attracted to you because, oh, he did this and I really like that. Or this person does these things and says these things and I really like that. Leadership is not about liked at all. It's about finding a path forward for your people, whether it's your group, your family, your company, your department. It's helping others grow. It's about discerning the best way forward. And if you find yourself making compromises, especially compromises on the basic principles of why you are in office or why you hold that position, that's showing you that you lack integrity. So let's keep talking, right? Because I want to share with you, most of the time people say, okay, Iqbal, this all makes sense. As a leader of this small group, of this large corporation, of this community, like I can recognize that these are questions I can ask myself, but it would sure be nice if you could give me some examples of people who have integrity and those that don't. And I'm going to say sometimes it's easiest just to look within our inner circle to recognize who has integrity, right? Your mom, your dad, those are probably the first few people, especially your siblings as well. Like when you're in a jam and people have your back, that's integrity. Like these can be your best friends, these can be your siblings, your family members. Like I remember a time like when my car broke down on the way back from the city, an hour drive, it's like 8:30 at night. And I mean, I'm sitting here on 290 expressway and I'm on the side and I'm like, man, this is like dangerous. Like, what am I supposed to do? I call one of my best friends and he's like, bro, I got you. And he drove over there in 40 minutes. We fixed the tire and he got in and he followed me all the way home. Right. Do I need to question, does he have integrity? No, this is a person that said that he was going to be there, that has always had my back, showed up, did the job, helped me get into a safe situation. And we've been friends ever since. We continue to do that. People looking within your inner circle is probably the best place to find people with integrity. However, and like Barbara pointed out, we're living in a very tumultuous time, right? We have 24-hour CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and of course on your phone, you've got constant updates from different news apps that's telling you what's happening, both political world, business world, corporate world. It's hard to find people up front that you can say and pinpoint 100% that that person has integrity, that CEO has integrity. It's easier to find people that have had misgivings, have had failings. So let's talk about that first, and we can identify where their failings were as strong leaders or as leaders with integrity. And then we can look at other people that have integrity, that have walked the talk, that have practiced what they've preached. So let's talk about in the corporate world. Iqbal, can you give me some examples of corporate leaders who lacked integrity? Yes, I can. As a pharmacist, one of the most notorious, and we've seen a few examples, especially in the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, where a pharmacist actually intentionally left out 500 doses of COVID-19 vaccine because he didn't think that it was the right thing or he didn't think it was safe. He violated his Hippocratic oath. He violated his pharmacist oath. He did not act with integrity because he was entrusted to be able to administer those vaccines. And on purpose, he let those vaccines denature or expire. That's one example. Probably the more familiar individual in the pharmacy world and in the business world that has gained a very negative reputation is Martin Shkreli. Most of you may have heard of him. Most of you have probably seen him on TV. Unfortunately, he has been nicknamed the Pharma Bro because he, as the CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, he actually raised the price of an anti-parasitic drug from $13.50 for one pill to $750 a pill. No changes in formulation, no changes in dosing, just because he owned it. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this later on, right? Is it legal? Yeah, it was legal, but was it the right thing to do? These were people, especially people with HIV, that were taking this medication to alleviate certain symptoms. It priced them way out of the market, right? And this individual was ultimately found guilty on 2 counts of fraud, securities fraud. So definitely another individual, but probably the most famous, most notorious corporate figure who lacked integrity was Bernie Madoff. There's an HBO story about him now. I'm sure everyone has seen or heard about Bernie Madoff, but if you're unfamiliar who he is, Bernie Madoff was an investment advisor and a financier. He was the former non-executive chairman of the NASDAQ. But he will not be remembered for those things. He will be remembered because he was found guilty of a Ponzi scheme that bilked, and I'm not making this number up, that bilked people out of $64.8 billion. That's with a B. $64.8 billion for a pyramid scheme that he made up. People acting with corporate leaders acting without integrity. Let's talk about political figures, right? I don't even need to go down to the most obvious political figure that's apparent, but I'm going to give you some history, right? Think about Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was, I think, like the 39th president of the United States. I apologize. I don't have them all memorized. He was from the Republican Party. Tricky Dick is what he will always be known for, basically because what he did as the president of the United States was to obstruct justice, was to actually prevent the federal government from being able to investigate some of the illegal activities that he was involved in. If anyone has not heard of Watergate, please Google it. It's a very interesting figure. It's a very interesting story. Richard Nixon, a political leader who did not act with integrity. But on the other side of the aisle, you have Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was our 42nd president of the United States. He was impeached in 1998 for obstruction of justice and for lying to the grand jury about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. Both sides, plenty of people to point at. Again, Democrats, Republicans, there's political figures abound where integrity was not their strong suit. Also in the religious world, there are different Christian leaders, Hindu leaders, Muslim leaders, lots of different leaders that you would think that based on their representation of their faith, all act with integrity. Jerry Falwell, Jim Baker. I mean, these are people that you can just research and learn some of the scandals that they've been involved in, and I don't need to point those out. But as a leader, I bring this up because I think it's important, whether you're just starting in your professional journey, whether you're a young father, young mother, that's, now has a child and a family, and you're like leading this small group, or you've taken on a role as a volunteer, or, you're leading a religious organization. Leadership is very important, and acting with integrity requires you to be able to ask those 5 questions that I pointed out and always do what you say that you're going to do. I remember a time when my brother, I love him, please don't misunderstand, I love my brother amazingly, but my brother would tell me as he lit up a cigarette that cigarettes were bad for me and that I would get cancer, so I should never start smoking. Not exactly acting with integrity, is it? I can see I have a few minutes left here, but the last question is, how do we get better? So there's 5 steps that I recognize or I think are important for every one of us to know. How do we get better? Number 1, do the right thing when no one is watching. Do the right thing when no one is watching. So if you're telling people, or if you believe firmly that whatever it might be, right? Like if you believe that, hey, saving animals is important, and if there's a kitten that's crying somewhere as you're walking past, even if no one's watching, do something. Go and help them. Number 2, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical, right? Martin Shkreli is the prime example of that. Like raising the prices of a medication like almost like 500%. It's wrong because you know that it's going to hurt people, right? Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. Act with integrity. Recognize that if your gut is telling you something, you listen to your gut. If your gut's not telling you something, ask other people that you trust. Like, hey, do you think this sounds good? Do you think this is something that we should do? Number 3, be careful of little white lies. Little white lies is that slippery slope, because the minute you can tell yourself, yeah, it's a small fib, I'm just adjusting the truth a little bit, the next time that little bit will be double. And the next time it will be quadruple. And the next time it will be 8 times as bigger. And suddenly you don't know where you're going to be able to stop, because a white lie leads to bigger lies. Number 4, check to see if your behavior or words hurt others. This is an accountability aspect, right? Because you might be speaking, passionately, emphatically, trying to help people recognize, like, this is why we do what we do. This is what we're going to do for the benefit of the group. But sometimes, like, your words and the intent behind your words aren't exactly picked up by your audience. And it's important to be able to ask people, especially the people that you support or that you represent, hey, Did you feel what I was saying? Like, did you feel that that had integrity? Am I saying things that you can agree with? Or do you believe, or do you have any questions or concerns? That builds greater trust. Finally, when it comes to how do we get better, your definition of honesty cannot be fluid. You should have one definition of honesty, right? Tell the truth 100% of the time. You don't tell the truth to somebody here and then kind of adjust it for somebody else over there and then tweak it so that it sounds different for a customer or a client. Your truth is the truth. It's 100% all the time consistent. Those are the 5 things that I recommend everyone do. So when we think about acting with integrity, it's these 5 principles that we can act on to be able to make sure that, hey, as a leader, as a representative, we can build trust with the people that we have, and we build a brand or reputation that people are attracted to because that's the leaders that they're looking for. As always, I hope you find that these ideas and insights help you with your professional and personal journey. If you'd like to learn more, or if you have any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. I'm the only beautiful bald brown guy with the first name Iqbal. And until then, as I said, I'm Iqbal Acha, your career consultant, leadership development coach, and personal branding expert, always reminding you to be polite, be professional, and be persistent. Barbara?
I told you, Iqbal always has some really good information for us. Integrity, integrity, integrity. You just cannot talk about that too much. You really cannot. That I feel like that should just be ingrained in all of us about having integrity. And we should work at it every single day in our lives. Good examples, what Iqbal brought up, good and bad and ugly, as I always say. We learn from people that are doing it, and then we also learn tips of people that are not doing it. So I always tell people, you learn from everyone. You learn from everybody. It's just up to you to make sure you're going the right route of what you're learning from that particular person. So always make sure that you're looking on that positive side and seeing what they're about before you just kind of just get into like, oh well, they didn't do nothing. Maybe that was okay. Let's stay with integrity. It's not okay. So you need to always have that mindset with that. So now we are going straight to our other expert, Mrs. Brandy Gant, and she basically just said her hellos. She couldn't be here and present. But she sent over her talk for today. So I want to put that on because I want to make sure you get everything that she has to say. And she's kind of our personal development expert, and she's going to be talking a lot about mindset, about us and how we are, and all that good stuff. So I want you to listen to her. She was on 2 weeks ago, but then we had a little glitch. But yeah, as you know, I'm gonna, I don't look at glitches. I let that propel and move forward. So I'm bringing her back on with what she had to talk about because it's real. I love what she has to say, and I know you're gonna get a lot out of it. So let me just gear that up, and then we're gonna hear from Brandy. Start. And here we go.
I began to really, really intentionally think about what I like to share. And as I was preparing, two words came to mind, and those words were breaking cycles. Now, how many of you, when you get to the end of the year, you begin to think about all of the things that you maybe wish that you had have done differently, or maybe some things that you wish that you had have even accomplished within that year? Yeah, I see your hands. I do the same thing. I begin to pin and write down goals because I'm a goal setter. I write down those goals of the things that I would like to see and do differently in the coming year. So this December, I actually didn't pin anything specifically because there had been one thing on my heart that I had been carrying for years. And for many years, I put it on my list of things that I'd like to resolve to do. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like resolutions because, frankly, I've never really been successful with a resolution beyond 15 days of the beginning of the year. So this year, I decided that instead of using the word resolution or resolving to do something, I've decided to break the cycle. Yeah. And the way I'm going to do that is I bought a cycle. Now, I'll get to that a little bit later. But the breaking cycles, if you think about it, just think hard enough. And maybe later on today, you'll write out some things of some cycles you like to break. Think about those things that maybe you've been dealing with or you've been holding on to for year after year or month after month, and they just seem to never go anywhere or do anything or beneficial in your life. I'm reminded when I think about that of a hamster. Now, I personally love animals and personally love the fluffy, furry animals. I don't like the snakes, the lizards, and all of those things, and cats either, but I love dogs. And when I was growing up, I had a guinea pig. Never got a hamster. And I'll tell you why I really didn't want to get a hamster. I went to the pet shop and I look at this hamster, and as adorable as the hamster is with this brown, fluffy fur, he's in this cage, a glass cage where you can observe him. And he's in this cage, and the bottom of the cage is filled with wood chips. And right in the center of that cage is what they call a hamster wheel. And off to the side is a bottle of water. And I observed this hamster. And I see the hamster, he traipses around the hamster wheel. He goes and sips some water. And then eventually he gets on this hamster wheel. And as he's on the hamster wheel, he's turning and turning and turning and turning. And he looks like he's doing a lot of great work. And he's turning and turning and turning. And then he'll jump off and he'll walk around the cage, get a sip of water, and maybe lay down. And then he'll get back up and he'll get right back on that hamster wheel. And he'll turn and turn and turn. And to the naked eye, he looks like he's doing a lot of great work. Like he's really, really, really exercising and really, really making an impact in his body. But for me, a deep thinker, and maybe some of you, I think that this is really silly. That this hamster would be in this cage filled with wood chips with a water bottle and a hamster wheel right in the center. And he's just going and going and going and going nowhere. That's kind of how I felt about this one particular area in my life that I've been holding on to for years. And every year as an adult, I've always wanted to get rid of it because I've been holding on to it for now some 39 years. I know you're shocked, but for some 39 years, I've been holding on to this one thing that every year I want to get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. And it keeps coming. And sometimes it comes back more and more and more. And I found myself every year, just like that cute, adorable hamster, because I think I'm cute and adorable too, cute and adorable hamster. I'm on the hamster wheel in this particular area of my life, going round and around and around and around in circles and getting nowhere, stuck in the same environment, and nothing's changing. I want you to take the time and think about what is it in your life that has become a cycle, potentially has become a hamster wheel in your life where you're jumping on and off and on and off and on and off, and you're in the same environment, taking a little break and getting a little refreshment, but somehow you keep ending up back on the same cycle over and over and over again, which truly, to me, is exhausting. Now, you probably by now have already figured out what I'm talking about. If not, then let me give you a clue. Yes, I am talking about weight loss. Now, a lot of us, many of us, people all over the world are going to be making resolutions to lose weight. And some of them may be very successful. And some of them may not. And they may find themselves spinning around the same cycle over and over and over again. In 2020, I, like many of you, have had to do some self-reflection. We've been sheltered in place. We've been quarantined. We've been isolated. We've been video chatting, video this, video that. Can't go here, can't go there. And it's forced us to really be intentional about our relationships, specifically the relationships with ourselves, our relationships with others, and our relationships with community. And today I want to start with talking about our relationships with ourselves. For me, as I mentioned earlier, I did this big thing. I made one of the largest purchases I've made, honestly, since buying a home. But I made a big purchase and decided I was going to break a cycle. And because we can't go to the gym, and as I said, my cycle breaking, it has to do with weight loss, I decided that I was going to purchase exercise equipment, and that one exercise equipment was a stationary bike. And this is where the thought came to me, where my mind began to shift that I can actually break cycles on a cycle. Now, I don't know about that hamster. I don't know what's in his mind or what cycle he wanted to break, but I have decided that I wanted to change my environment, and I'm going to break cycles on my cycle. Yes, that's what I have determined that I'm going to do, is break a cycle on my cycle. Now, you may be thinking, well, why is that a cycle? That's many of us. Now, I'll tell you a little bit of background. In 2007, I began my very first real attempt to lose weight. I mean, I was successful. My starting weight was 314 pounds, and every day, 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, I'd go to the gym. I'd get on that treadmill and I'd walk. And then from walking, I'd run. And from running, I started to jog. And from walking, I started to jog. And then I'd jog. And then I'd run. And then I'd lift weights. And then I got a trainer. And before I knew it, in a matter of months, I was dropping so much weight that I, in fact, had to take my suit pants in the back and pin them with the safety pin because I was losing weight so rapidly. I was excited. I felt great. I looked great. I was more confident. People were taking notice. And somehow, the weight from 2010 to 2020 slowly crept back on. Now, I am excited that all the weight didn't come back, but I will say that I've gained more pounds than personally I'd like to say I gained back. And this year, I had to really realize that, sure, I could lose the weight, but what was it that kept me getting right back on the hamster wheel of weight loss? And I realized that it wasn't the fact of just getting up and going to the gym. It wasn't the fact of just making better choices with my food, but I had to break a cycle in my mind. Because sure, anybody can go to the gym. And sure, anybody can eat differently. But if it doesn't begin in the mind first, it's never going to change. I've heard someone say that mind over matter. Now, many of us know that common phrase of mind over matter, which means that if your mind is stronger than what is happening, then it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to say to you, if it doesn't matter, don't mind it. Because if it's not important to you, then there's no need to focus on it. We have to change our minds. That's one of the first things we have to do. We have to make up our mind to break a cycle. And from making up our mind on breaking cycles, we then need to make up our minds as to what we're going to say about ourselves. Yeah. Sometimes we find ourselves not being successful in breaking cycles because we keep speaking the wrong things. We keep speaking negatively about our situation. There's a scripture that I love, and it says this, that death and life are in the power of the tongue. They that love it shall eat of its fruit. That last part says, they that love it shall eat of its fruit. Meaning, they that love negative words will eat of the fruit of those negative words. Some of us say things like, oh, I'll never lose the weight. Oh, it's just so hard. Or I wish I could, rather than saying, I'm getting rid of this weight for good. Or there's nothing too hard for me to accomplish. Or saying, I can do all things that are put in front of me. I can leap over every hurdle. I can blow past any obstacle. Those are positive affirmations of words that we can say to break the cycles in our lives. The third thing is that we need to focus on is changing our environment. There's a quote that says, if the flower doesn't grow where it's planted, then we change the environment, not the flower. You see, each and every one of us has a specific purpose for why we were created. And there's nothing wrong with the purpose, but there may be something wrong with the environment where you're planted. I want you to think about that. Some of us have probably, if we're still employed, have gotten to the place where we really want to be doing something that we're passionate about. And maybe the environment that we're in isn't lending toward us growing and thriving as we should. And sooner or later, as we think about wanting to do exactly what that quote says of changing our environment, because there's nothing wrong with the flower, that we oftentimes find ourselves fearful of taking the first step to making a change, to changing our environment. And that was kind of like me. I bought this cycle. And man, looking at the price tag on this cycle, oh my goodness. I was unemployed, but I had this deep longing to break this cycle, because this cycle in my life of being overweight wasn't just affecting me. It was affecting my family. It's affecting the children in my family. And I was tired of seeing it. I didn't want to have to contend with this thing anymore. So I made up my mind. I said, you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to do something about it, because I don't want to look up another year in 2021 thinking about the same thing that has hounded me for years, which is being overweight, not liking what I see in the mirror. So I made a change. After getting over the sticker shock of how much the bike was actually going to cost, and not being employed and getting this bike, I just stepped out on faith. I said, I know that if I do this, if I make up my mind, I can accomplish this. So I did. In November, I purchased the bike for my birthday. In December, my bike that I purchased came. I was extremely excited about it because it arrived early. So I could now start tackling and breaking this cycle a whole month earlier than what I had anticipated. The first day I got on and I'm riding Oh my goodness, this is tough. I'm riding and I'm riding, and my body is uncomfortable in places that you would not imagine it's uncomfortable. And I decide I'm going to launch out and do a 30-minute cycle exercise to break this cycle in my life. And as I'm riding, sweat's pouring, and I'm hurting in all kinds of places. And I keep cycling. And there's a live instructor on the screen, and I put my head down. And as I have my head down, I'm thinking, I'm about to quit. I'm about to give up. I'm about to hop off this bike because I can't take it. And at that moment, I hear the live instructor that's not in the room with me. He's on the screen. He says, look up. Yeah, put your head up. And immediately my head shot up, and I turned, and I'm thinking, is he in the room with me? And he wasn't. But I'm sure, like me, he was probably getting to the point in this cycle exercise that he wanted to give up too, but he couldn't because he had a job to do. And not only did he have a job to do, I had a cycle to break. And I was determined I was going to do it. So I'm riding. I look up and I'm listening to the music, and I'm rocking out. And before I knew it, things weren't hurting anymore. Before I knew it, things weren't bothering anymore. And the sweat, yes, it was pouring in my eyes. I couldn't see, so I couldn't look at the time anymore. And before I knew it, he said, now open up your arms. And he brought his hands down like this. And he said, clap it up. You made it. In those 30 minutes, I realized that although breaking a cycle may be challenging, and breaking a cycle, it's going to hurt in a lot of places that you never even thought you'd have pain. But look up. Put your head up. Keep going. Push through past the discomfort. Push past the pain. Because, baby, just like this show is, you're a diamond. And it's time for you to shine. Stop carrying whatever that is that keeps you on that hamster wheel of life, keeping you in the same circle, same cycle over and over and over again from January to December and every year, 365 days a year, 12 months. Break the cycle, because anything that breaks always breaks because there's been some pressure applied. You push past the limitation. It's been pushed past the limitation of how it was created and what it was created to do in order for it to then be able to be put back together again. And I'm telling you, break the cycle. Get out of that environment. Change your mind. Change the words you're saying about yourself. We're not making resolutions this year. We're breaking cycles because we don't want to go back. We only want to go forward. Put one foot in front of the other. Keep your mind on what's important. Don't think about what doesn't matter. Keep your mind focused and break cycles. I'm so glad to share this time with you today. I look forward to being with you again on another Monday. I am Brenda Renee, and it's a pleasure to be spending time with you this morning. Barbara, back to you.
I'm hanging. Your every word, the love inside, I feel it burn. I've never felt this way before. I've had a taste, now I want more. So here we are, just you and me. I'm overwhelmed when you touch me. You talk so sweet, I hear the sound. 'Cause when you do, my feet won't touch the ground. My feet won't touch the ground.
Always have to get it going. Always. So thank you, Brandy. I can't wait for the other following Monday. She comes on the first and third Mondays, and you'll be hearing from that lady. I'm telling you, she is a powerful, powerful queen. I always call my ladies Queen Diamonds, and she is an awesome queen. Yes. So what are your weights? What are your weights in your life? It doesn't have to just be, losing weight for your, health, but what are your weights? Ooh, I can talk about it. I can go on to that and keep on going with that one. But just think about it. You can do it. You can do it. So I want to end with this. I started off by talking about because I got my quote about what I was thinking about for today, and with MLK Day, and thinking about what he accomplished in life, and it's his birthday, and we're celebrating today, and in his works and his movement. But what did I always say? I said, love is the absence of judgment. We need to bring the love back in this world. We truly need to bring the love back in this world, because that will cover so much other stuff that's not even irrelevant, that's causing a lot of chaos, and that's keeping us from moving forward, as for all of us to grab hold of those dreams that we have and those goals that we want to accomplish. So I'm going to end with this. This is what I have. I always keep things around my area of what I do during the day. And I have this with, and it kind of coincides with MLK, because he was always talking about the dream that he had. So if you can dream it, you can do it. If you can dream it, you can do it. And remember, make those dreams a reality. And the way to do that is to put some feet to it, I always say. Put some action to it. That's what you need to make sure that your dreams and your goals and your aspirations will come to pass. Just take those steps. And believe me, if you keep on moving forward with it, it is going to happen for you. You all have a wonderful rest of the MLK Day. Celebrate, serve, talk to others, love each other, talk about things that is going to push us forward in life. And whatever you do, always remember, inside of here, keep that peace. As I always call it, your PPD, your purpose, your passion, and your drive. And that is your diamond factor in your life. With that said, we will see you on Wednesday. Bye.